Hey guys, welcome back to the Gray Students Podcast. In this episode, we're going to continue our conversation on relationships. And in this particular conversation, we're going to try to unpack the idea of satisfaction and how we tend to try to find our satisfaction in our relationships, and then how that can affect our future with our spouse as well. So stay tuned on this episode of the Gray Students Podcast. All right, guys, welcome back. It is good to be with you again on this episode, and we're continuing our conversation here with Jay and Carly. Thanks for joining us again in the studio.
Hi, I think we're getting the hang of this.
Yeah, I think we're getting better every time. So I'm joined here also by Scott.
This has been a lot of fun. I don't know. I don't want to speak for anyone else, but I've thoroughly enjoyed this. I think it's been much better than what we thought.
It's not over yet.
Carly's like, don't speak for me.
Yeah.
No, I think we should do this more often. If this is our most viewed podcast, that might speak for itself. So you guys might be staples. You didn't know that when you signed up, but
yeah.
So we want to continue our conversation on relationships and just kind of unpack a particular idea about where we find our satisfaction. And I think it's important to point out right at the beginning that we can find our satisfaction in a lot of things. This isn't just a relationship conversation. We can find our satisfaction in what people think of us, in our jobs, in the good grades that we get, as students, if we make the team or not, if we're popular or not, if people like us. I mean, the list is endless as to where we try to find our satisfaction. But I do think that relationships is a high one on that list, because anytime you involve another person in close connection, that seems to heighten it a little bit, and it hurts more when that person thinks poorly of you or treats you poorly, but it also feels good when it's fun and when it's going well. And so what do you guys think are some reasons that relationships can be so satisfying? Like, why do we tend to look there for satisfaction?
I feel like, man, I don't know. It feels really good when somebody tells you that you're pretty and that you're kind and they enjoy doing things with you. And I don't know. I know my dating life in the past was that's where I put my energy and my focus on. I kind of did the isolation thing and was really content with just having that person who thought the world of me. But then when there was a fight or an argument or something, it was like the worst thing ever. I remember sitting and listening to sad songs and crying for hours. And did you do that too?
I did. I did do that.
And
Put in our cassette tape of breakup songs.
yeah, Boys to Men.
Which is currently banned at the Cunningham house. You cannot listen to a Boyz II Men
I don't
song.
think our crew even knows what cassette tapes are, so
Yep. I
I'm
had
flip
it
it
in
over.
my AWA
Yeah.
boombox.
I think I listened to like Shania Twain or like Celine
You went the
Dion.
country route. Okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
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 With Slim Pickings in Ecuador.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
Slim Pickings. Yeah, I did grow up in Ecuador, so it was a little bit different. Yeah.
Spanish breakup songs are probably
They're
really
actually
sad.
they're actually really great though.
Those
I
sweet
mean,
talking
I don't know.
Latinos.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
They make it like worse than it should be and way better than it actually is. Yeah. So.
But isn't that what sells though?
Do we have to edit that out?
Yeah.
I don't That's great.
Oh, boy.
That's great.
Everyone's going to start listening to Latino music now.
Yeah. But that's
Not
so
because
true,
of
though. Like, it just resonates. It just hits us deeply. And so I think, we turn to music a lot of times when to express those emotions. And,
Yeah.
it's like they say it well or man, that resonates with me.
And at the time, like if you go through a breakup or you're in a new relationship, you are at the high or the low where
Yeah.
that song takes you. And so, in back to our selfishness, we tend to think, since we are the center of our own universe, which we're not, but we tend to think to ourselves like, oh, this is the worst possible thing. Like, this is the worst breakup that I've ever had because it's the current one,
or that anybody else in the entire universe has ever experienced.
Right. Yeah. No one can relate to me because they didn't
Right.
love that person. Or
Right.
whatever.
It's the definition of selfishness.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what are some other thoughts on why we tend to get so much satisfaction out of relationships? Carly, I completely agree. Like, it feels good when somebody likes you and tells you that. What else do you guys think?
I mean, I think I just agree with Carly. And I think I might add that there's a level of control, maybe, that we get when we put a lot on somebody else to satisfy us. I don't know.
I think self-esteem.
Yeah,
Your
it boosts
self-esteem like
self-esteem.
boosts. Yeah.
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 Those are both good
And
points.
confidence.
Yeah.
Like when things are going well.
Right.
Things are going
Yeah,
well,
when things are
yeah.
going well, your self-esteem is up, your confidence is up. Like I can conquer the world.
And you're putting that on the other person a lot,
which is not fair.
which is not fair,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and one thing that's true in dating relationships, especially in the social media world, is you try to put your best foot forward, right? And you try to present yourself in a way that, you know, I want this person to see the best side of me. And so even if I don't like something, I'll kind of squash that for now. And just the deeper in you get to that relationship, the more that stuff comes to the surface. But especially at the outset, it kind of becomes what's the best image I can show you so that you'll stick around. But that's also not reality because that
Yeah.
breaks down.
Yeah, and I think there's also, maybe to a smaller degree than what we've kind of talked about, is the idea of where, again, you're just boosting your self-confidence of saying, like, and this might be especially after a breakup. You know, if you get over a breakup and then you start dating someone else, you're like, all right, like, heck with that person. Like,
Here we go.
Here we go. Like, I can do this again. And again, but if your focus is wrong, then you're not going to be satisfied very long in that relationship. And so I think we can get a lot of satisfaction out of trying to prove other people wrong. You know, so we may pursue someone that, like you had said, the bad boy or bad girl, I guess, they exist. And going after them.
They do, yeah.
And being like, see, I told you I could get together with this person, and your motives were completely wrong from the beginning, and so maybe the relationship lasts for a while, but there's just so many places that we can find satisfaction.
Maybe we should do a podcast where we define a bad boy and or let's just
I
be
don't
clear.
think we
We're all
should.
bad.
Yeah.
All right. Like
That's
some of
true.
us show
Like
it
a-
on the outside, some of us show it on the inside.
Like a rule breaker kind of thing is what I think.
And it's
Yeah.
not just
maybe.
limited to boys. Like
Girls can be bad
Yeah.
too.
some
Yeah.
of us just internalize it and hide it and try to.
Yeah.
So we're
That's
all
true.
sinners, right?
Yeah.
We all are capable of anything, and so when we say that, we poke fun at that. But at the same time, we want to live in the reality of
Right.
well, we're all sinners and we're all in need of the good news of the gospel. And I think another thing that we want to be clear in is that relationships are satisfying. It's not a bad thing, right? To find satisfaction in my relationship with you is so good. Like that's something that is that's part of the reason why we want to be together, right? Because it is satisfying. It is something there there's a connection. There's pursuing Jesus together. In the midst of the fights and the disappointments and the negativity that can happen because of life, it is satisfying and it's not bad.
And I think that's, the way that God created the whole marriage dating system, because God is a relational God. So I think that is why it can be so satisfying. I think the sinful part of finding satisfaction is when that becomes the all-consuming or that becomes the driving force as to why I have this relationship. And it's not because I'm Jesus focused or that I'm finding my satisfaction in Jesus. And this is a really great side, I don't know if I want to say side aspect to that in a marriage relationship. But
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Yeah, I pretty much. I'm a side hobby for you. That's what I get out of that. But
Yeah, now
like
you're
a
taking
stamp
it
collection.
weird. Now you took it weird.
how else am I supposed to take it? I mean, no, I think, and to your point, I think you're absolutely right. Like God designed marriage to image His pursuit of us,
Right.
right? Like this gospel idea in marriage is that Jesus is pursuing us. I mean, that's why Paul says in Ephesians, "Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church, who
Right.
gave Himself up for it." Like that's what this thing is designed to image. And so everything about relationship, dating, marriage is to point us to the reality that God is you're absolutely right, a relational God pursuing a relationship with us. And that's so huge, because if we miss that, then we miss the point of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Right.
And the other thing that I think we can find satisfaction is the physical nature of relationships. And I think that in high school, or just when you're younger, we'll say, if we had talked in a previous podcast, if you didn't see it, go check it out. Like, how far is too far? And for some people, maybe holding hands is too far for you, or kissing, or whatever it might be. But I think it's important to realize that even if you're both Jesus followers and you're pointing each other to Christ, that's not like you checked your box and now you can immediately go into physical. And if you're both
Right.
okay with holding hands, check that box. It's not like a progressional thing where you just check off your boxes. Like, sure, there may be some things that you can do, to show your love, but it needs to stop at, the biblical line of, premarital sex or anything like that. And so that's something that I think a lot of people may get tempted by, is like, oh, well, I did find someone. We really like each other, and we're both followers of Jesus, and we're both living this great way, and we're planning on maybe getting married.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's not the same. Planning on maybe getting married and being married, like with rings, is not that the ring, is special, but it is special. let me clarify that.
I did
we
put
just-
mine on.
We
Yeah.
just had a wedding ring
Yes,
conversation
we just had
prior
one.
to this.
But like the ring doesn't signify. You know what I mean?
You just got to go down a different route.
Yeah.
You dug a hole there.
You're right. But I mean, so that would be something I think we need to safeguard too.
I agree. That's a great point. So what do we think? I have my thought on this. I'll throw it to you guys. What's a good way to tell if we're trying to find our satisfaction in our relationship? Whether if you're a student and you're listening, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, if you're a parent and you're listening, your spouse, or whoever you are, if you're listening, like, what's a good way to try to determine if that's happening? If we're trying to find that ultimate satisfaction in them.
So it's really funny that you asked that question, because the entire time I think that you were talking and then you started talking, sorry, I hit my microphone, I was thinking that an important thing to note would be that a really great way to determine whether I'm finding satisfaction in my relationship or in Jesus Christ, or where exactly I am falling in that line, I think is selfishness. Like, am I looking at myself for how I feel about it, or if I'm satisfied, or what am I looking for, just the way I want. I'm more concerned about the way that he makes me feel. I'm more concerned about what he's giving me. That you're so focused on what I'm getting out of it. That's a really good indication that you're finding satisfaction in the relationship, I
Great.
think.
Yeah.
Great point.
I think that, and how much time. I think time has a
time.
big thing to do with it. Like, how much time are you spending it, whatever things you're doing in your life? Like, I think we value our time pretty heavily. At least I know I do. And so where am I putting my time? It's kind of like money. Like, where do you put your money? Where do you put your time? I think time is a big indication.
It's a great point as well.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Man, it's hard to follow both of those. But I think, restate the question. It was, how do you know if you're putting too much satisfaction in someone? I think it can go back to how does it affect your time? And so what are you doing about it? And maybe how are you then speaking about that person to other people? So like, for example, for a guy, like if in your conversations you're talking about selfish things like, oh yeah, anytime, I get a ton of likes on my photos or people make comments and it makes me feel good. Like if you're finding satisfaction in people telling you how good your relationship is, that could be a big red flag, because now you're doing it for the satisfaction of other people instead of having focus on your boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever. So not that, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. I could go down a different track, but for time's sake, we'll stop there.
I think you talk about what you love.
Yeah.
Right. And if all we talk about is our relationship with whether that's a boy, girl, husband, wife, and we're never talking about Jesus, that's a pretty good indication, even if you are married, that you're trying to find something in your relationship with your spouse that only Jesus is designed to fill. And so I think you start that pattern when you're dating, and you carry that into your marriage relationship. I know for me, one of the things I would say is a pretty good indicator of whether you are finding too much satisfaction in your relationship is to look at your if only statements. If only my girlfriend would do this, man, this would be the best relationship ever, right? If only my boyfriend would bring me this or talk to me this way. If only my wife would understand what I really need. If only my husband, so that can be a red flag indicator of, how many times do we be like, man, if only Jesus would,
Yeah.
like, man, if only I had more time to read my Bible, then, that's not the kind of things that we say. And so I think that's an indicator of where we try to find our satisfaction, and then we just keep trying to go down that road. But yeah, there's a lot more we could say on that, but I think that's a good place to kind of wrap part 3. So we got one more thing we want to talk about, kind of try to pull it all together, gospel ramifications of our dating choices. So we'll talk about that next time.
Bye, guys. See ya.
Bye.